Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Ranked, where I climb the online Regulation E VGC ladder in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and provide live commentary as I go. In this video, I'll be trying out a really strong hyper offense team that just finished in the top 4 of a regional championships in Australia. It features the infamous Indeedee plus Armarouge duo, as well as Torkoal plus Hisuan Lilligant, and you've also got Ursaluna and a Choice Scarf Regidrago with Dragon Terra. Choice Scarf Regidrago, in my opinion, is probably one of the most overlooked sets in the format right now, and it feels absolutely incredible to play with. And this team is so oppressive, it can win games really quickly, and it's tough for opposing teams to respond because there's so many threats that you have to respect simultaneously. As always, I'll do a quick breakdown of the team, but if you want to just skip to the battles, check out the timestamps down in the description below. And thanks so much as always for joining me. If you enjoy, would really appreciate it if you consider leaving a like in the video or subscribing to the channel. It really helps out a ton. Breaking things down, as always, rental, pace, and team creator are linked down in the description below. And as I mentioned, this team finished in the top 4 of a regional championship over in Australia, so I'll link the results from that tournament down in the description below as well. I was drawn to this team for a couple of reasons. First of all, it has Choice Scarf Regidrago, and this set feels so good in the format right now, especially on the online ladder in a closed team sheet environment. This team was made for an open team sheet best of 3 environment, so you don't necessarily have that surprise in person, but online, you can really catch opponents off guard with this set. And even when your opponent knows about it, it's still, I think, in a really good spot in the meta right now. I was also drawn to it because I think right now a lot of the top teams in-person tournaments centralize around compositions like Tornadus as well as Rory Moon balance teams. And so to see a team that has Trick Room, that has Sun on it, and Regidrago on it do so well in an in-person tournament, I think is really cool. The first Pokemon to talk about on this team then, of course, is the Regidrago. Regidrago has had a big comeback in the format recently. We've mainly seen it on Tornadus compositions, and on those teams, you generally set up Tailwind, and then you use Dragon Energy, and those Regidragos will have a defensive Terra, something like Steel or Poison, to resist Fairy attacks. This is a Choice Scarf Dragon Terra set. The idea is that Choice Scarf, Dragon Energy with Dragon Terra can just pick up so many knockouts, and when you combine that with Helping Hand support from Indeedee, you can very quickly just beat teams in 1 to 2 turns, which is absolutely incredible. So pretty straightforward moveset here, and pretty straightforward EV spread as well. You're just max special attack and max speed to try to do as much damage as possible, and you have Earth Power for some coverage as well. The thing about Regidrago is we're in a format right now where one of the most common Terra types is Dragon. And part of the reason for that is because of Ogerpon and because of Urshifu existing, and because there aren't that many strong Dragon types right now. But Regidrago gets to take advantage of that. And for those that do Terra into Dragon, you can really just get a quick knockout with this Pokemon. So I find this absolutely amazing to start games with and just completely catch opposing teams off guard, especially on the ladder because few people expect Scarf on this Pokemon. And I also love it as a late game kind of closing Pokemon. Now, the rest of the team has very obvious duos. You've got Indeedee plus Armarouge. This is a tale as old as time. We've seen this right from the beginning since it was introduced, and it continues to be quite good. I think what makes this Armarouge unique in particular is, first of all, it's more defensive. As you see, you're also min speed, and it's also Psychic Terra with Life Orb. So the general idea is that Indeedee Armarouge, obviously an incredible lead duo because both Pokemon threaten with Trick Room. You can also just go for something like Helping Hand, Psychic Terra, Expanding Force immediately to pick up a double knockout. One of the things that makes this team so strong is that it has some of the best spread moves in the game, right? You have Expanding Force from Armarouge, you've got the Dragon Energy from Regidrago, you've got Eruption from Torkoal, and Earthquake from Ursaluna. So I've had a lot of games where literally the game is won in basically the first 2 turns because our opponents don't expect so much burst damage, and it's able to just immediately get knockouts while our opponents often commit a Terra. So the Indeedee Armarouge combo, fairly straightforward. As you'll notice, this is max HP, max defense with Rocky Helmet. This is just really nice, especially into Water Urshifu. You can also bring out Torkoal to even further reduce the damage of Surging Strikes, for example. But I think one of the biggest moves to call out on this Indeedee is Helping Hand. Helping Hand will allow you to make Dragon Energy and Expanding Force moves that normally don't pick up a one-hit knockout into moves that pick up a one-hit KO. So I actually often like just leading Indeedee Armarouge or Indeedee Regidrago and just threatening with something like Helping Hand, Dragon Terra, Dragon Energy, or Helping Hand, Psychic Terra, Expanding Force. That's one of the strongest combos that you have with this team. You also notice that there's a little bit more special defense bulk on this Armarouge as well, which obviously helps out against special type attackers. You also have Torkoal plus Lilligant. Lilligant's a Pokemon that's honestly, I feel like, a little bit underplayed, and it was a Pokemon that also hasn't just seen that much play since it's been introduced to VGC, but it's so hard to fight against because there's so many things it can do, right? Of course, with Chlorophyll and the Sun, this thing can just start putting on pressure with Sleep Powder. You also have pressure with After You plus Fire Terror Eruption immediately from Torkoal. And Solar Blade and Close Combat both are really meaningful moves as well. They do significant damage. So Torkoal Lilligant also just a really viable lead with this team because you're able to just pressure immediately with Sleep Powder, with After You Eruption, and it puts on a lot of pressure. Ursaluna is the final Pokemon. And Ursaluna is mainly here kind of for a Trick Room mode, right? You've got Trick Room on Indeedee and Armarouge, so with Ursaluna, what you're able to do, of course, is set up Trick Room, then bring out Ursaluna and sweep with this under Trick Room. But you can also do some pretty interesting things because you have Torkoal Lilligant on this team. So one thing you do is lead Torkoal Lilligant, set up the Sun, switch Ursaluna out as you put something to sleep with Sleep Powder, and then you can use After You on your own Ursaluna, because as you switched it in, Flame Orb activates, then the subsequent turn you just have a fully powered Ursaluna, so you can take advantage of it outside of Trick Room as well, which I think is really neat. I think when you play with this team, you really want to think about duos, right? Indeedee and Armarouge normally come as a pair. Torkoal Lilligant normally come as a pair. And so you can, of course, separate the pieces, but they're really strong when combined with each other. So to me, the lead is really important. I often ask myself, what do I want to go for? Do I want to try to set up Trick Room and sweep with Trick Room, or do I actually even need to set up Trick Room? Because you have a fast mode with this team, right? You can go Indeedee, Regidrago, or Torkoal Lilligant, and with these combinations, you don't necessarily need to be setting up Trick Room. In fact, you just go for straight damage immediately. You can, of course, like I mentioned, go with Indeedee Armarouge as well, and this is a really tough lead to fight against because you want to deny Trick Room from both Pokemon, but you also need to deny the Expanding Force, and it's really hard to cover for all of those options. So I first asked myself, like, is Trick Room necessary, or can I just win the game if my opponent is really Trick Room weak? For example, a lot of those Tornadus teams that are out there right now don't have a great Trick Room matchup. So against those teams, often I'll think about setting up Trick Room a little bit more early on. But otherwise, if I think Regidrago is going to be faster than everything on my opponent's team, and they don't have a good resistance to it, especially something like a Fairy or a Steel type, I'm happy to just go with Regidrago. So I think when I think about this team, I first think about three possible leads: Indeedee Regidrago, Indeedee Armarouge, Torkoal Lilligant. Those are kind of the go-to leads that I first default towards. I try to figure out, okay, are any one of those three really viable? And if so, I should just play around it. Otherwise, if the answer is no, then, you're gonna have to do a little bit more work. I think it's not as intuitive to separate the pieces, but you can do interesting things, right? You can lead Lilligant plus Armarouge and then have Indeedee and Torkoal in the back. That's particularly valuable if you think your opponent has potential weather on their side, or if they have their own terrain through something like Rillaboom, for example. And so with this lead, for example, you can just pivot in Torkoal for the Armarouge and then just have Torkoal Lilligant enabled, or you can switch Lilligant out into Indeedee, set up Psychic Terrain, and then have Indeedee Armarouge, right? So that's one other way you can consider thinking about how to split up the pieces, but still have them together at some point in the game. So yeah, this team is just one of the most offensive, most aggressive teams I've played with on the channel. And I think if you're looking for a team to climb the ladder with quickly, this is definitely one I'd recommend at the moment. It just has so much firepower, and it's very difficult to cover for all the options from it. So that's it for a quick breakdown. In terms of weaknesses, the first thing that I want to call out is that this team relies pretty heavily on spread moves. So if you have Wide Guard, that in itself can be really annoying to deal with. In terms of individual things that each Pokemon doesn't want to go up against, for Regidrago, this set really hates going up against Fairy types because you don't have a defensive Terra and your Choice Scarf, right? So you're going to be clicking Dragon type attacks most of the time. If a Fairy type switches into it, then it's a complete nightmare and you're often forced to switch out immediately afterwards. Steel types are also pretty annoying. Something like an Assault Vest Steel type, Heatran, for example, can switch into Dragon Energy. And generally, when you're fighting against this Regidrago, if you're able to, figure out which move it locks itself into and then have good defensive switches, the Regidrago is almost always forced to switch out afterwards, putting it into a really difficult position. So that's one thing to watch out for in particular. For Indeedee and Armarouge, this duel doesn't love going up against opposing terrain, especially from Rillaboom, and it also doesn't love going up against Pokemon that can resist both Fire and Psychic. So Heatran is a really big example once again, where it can soak up the damage and also doesn't take much damage while being able to threaten with Earth Power, for example, onto Armarouge. In terms of beating Ursaluna, generally I think having Flying or Ghost types are really valuable because Ursaluna loves it when it can just keep clicking Facade or Headlong Rush for free, but if you have something that's completely immune to it, then Ursaluna has to play the guessing game of which move to click. So when you're fighting against this, Ursaluna is often going to be fighting under Trick Room. A lot about beating it is trying to stall out Trick Room without losing too many of your resources in Pokemon. So making sure that your opponent can't just freely click Facade or Headlong Rush is a really big deal. Rounding out the weaknesses, the first thing I'd call out for Torkoal is that it doesn't love going up against opposing weather, especially rain. So something like Pelipper or Manual Rain Dance from Tornadus can be pretty tricky. It also doesn't love going up against Pokemon that can take fire type attacks well. So Heatran with Flash Fire is a good example, but also just water type Pokemon, fire type Pokemon, and Terras on those, especially Assault Vest Pokemon with those Terras, can be really tough to deal with. I think a lot of games I've lost with this team are actually when I expect Torkoal to just sweep under Trick Room. My opponent protects one Pokemon, Terras defensively with the other, Eruption doesn't really do that much damage, and they deal massive amounts of damage in return to Torkoal. Suddenly, then, that one turn of Trick Room doesn't go super well, and then I have to rely on Heat Wave rather than Eruption. So, good defensive Terras can be really good. Dragon is another good example as well, and that's one of the most common Terras in the format right now. For Lilligant, I think having things that are immune to Sleep Powder are really valuable. So your own grass types, I think, are really important. You could potentially taunt this Pokemon as well, for example, to deny the Sleep Powder. And overall, I think there are a fair amount of Pokemon that resist the combination of Solar Blade in close combat. So bringing those out onto the field are also valuable in particular. One general trend with this team as well is I think in a fair amount of games I've lost, I commit to a slow mode, right? I go like Indeedee, Armarouge, Torkoal, maybe Ursaluna, and basically I don't get enough out of my turns of Trick Room, so my opponents are able to successfully stall out Trick Room, and then everything is just slower and they're able to just overwhelm me with offense. That's one trend that I found happening a fair amount, so keep that in mind if you're committing to some of the slower Pokemon. And even if I commit to Regidrago plus 3 slow Pokemon, Drago sometimes doesn't necessarily have the power to like carry a game if it's heavily damaged early on, so that's something to think about as well. When you're committing a Trick Room with this team, be very cognizant of it because each turn really matters, and if you run out of Trick Room turns, you're going to be caught in a really difficult position. But those are just a couple of notes that I've had while playing with the team. Let's get into things. For this one, we've got Ursaluna Blood Moon, Hands Chi-Yu, Flutter, as well as Cresselia and Water Ogerpon. So Flutter Chi-Yu is probably one of the bigger leads to watch out for. I think with these, you normally expect Booster on Flutter, which hits speed stat of 205 before the Booster Energy comes into effect. So we'll outspeed with Lilligant. I could just go Lilligant plus Torkoal, honestly. Lilligant, Torkoal. And I'm thinking Ursaluna plus Drago here. I think one interesting thing is that you can do with this team is pivoting Torkoal out into Ursaluna immediately and then going for an attack with Lilligant or Sleep Powder. Then Ursaluna comes out, it activates the Flame Orb, and then the subsequent turns you can go for after you. So that's one thing to consider here. But I think with Torkoal we can also just be pretty offensive. They are going to go with Chi-Yu and Flutter, okay? So my main question normally in these situations are what are the items on both Flutter and Chi-Yu? And what are the Terras as well? Yep, speed boost there. We ideally want to eliminate Flutter main, so I actually don't hate... I mean, I do have Sleep Powder here. It doesn't feel the best to rely on, but it might actually not be a terrible spot to go for it. I think alternatively, I can just go for Solar Blade and Heat Wave here. Because if we clear Flutter, it opens the door for Regidrago. So, I'm actually down for that. I think Chi-Yu going for a defensive Terra into something like Ghost here makes a lot of sense. So that you don't take super effective damage from close combat. It could also be Fire Terra. But, yep, there's Ghost. Perfect. Yeah, like, what I want to do, ideally, is just pave the path for the Regidrago. I'm assuming the Solar Blade doesn't get a one-hit knockout, but if so, that'd be a very pleasant surprise. Let's see. Okay. Lilligant is just built different. I mean, it's a really strong attack. I just feel like Flutter mains these days are so invested, but they're just going to Dark Pulse into Torkoal. Okay. Very aggressive trade on turn 1 there. That could have been pretty bad, I guess. Well, because they Dark Pulse and not Heat Waved, even if Flutter had survived, I think we were still in okay shape. But now I get a free switch into a Choice Scarf Regidrago, which is awesome for us. They're going to bring out Iron Hands, okay. Hands is annoying, but in this position, you can only fake out one of my 2 Pokemon, right? The question is whether or not we think Solar Blade will knock out Chi-Yu, because you can fake out Dark Pulse either slot right now. I do have Ghost Terra on Lilligant, which would guarantee me not getting flinched here. If I were my opponent, I mean, would you expect Choice Scarf on Drago is the thing, right? Because I think the Scarf can really catch my opponent off guard. So I'm actually thinking of just going for Sleep Powder, Dragon Terra, and Dragon Energy here. The logic is you have to click Fake Out into Drago here, and even if you click Fake Out into it, I have a 75% chance of just putting Chiyu to sleep, right? The scary thing is relying on the potential Sleep Powder. Or not potential, I'm going for it. The scary thing is it can potentially miss here. But I think if you're my opponent, you might be incentivized to actually click Fake Out onto Lilligant, thinking that Chiyu should outspeed Regidrago. And here's Choice Scarf Regidrago, folks. Dragon Terra with that Dragon Energy. That is going to get a one-hit knockout onto Chiyu. Beautiful. That's exactly what we were looking for here, as Chiyu faints. Yeah, couldn't have asked for a better game here, honestly. We were able to get an immediate knockout onto Flutter Mane. We were able to use the surprise of Choice Scarf as well. Now Iron Hands just folds to another Dragon Energy, right? So, when you're using a Pokemon like Regidrago, you need to be very careful about what counters it, right? Because Regidrago would have been a terrible lead into my opponent's Flutter Mane, especially with that speed booster. But in this spot, now I can just Solar Blade and Dragon Energy. By trading Flutter Mane on turn 1, even though I lost Torkoal, it's such a positive trade, right? Pokemon count isn't the only thing to pay attention to. Sometimes clearing one Pokemon can just enable another Pokemon to fully sweep through. So both Lilligant and Regidrago put in so much work so far in this battle. So here's the Solar Blade onto Cresselia. Not going to do too much, but Dragon Energy should finish off Iron Hands. And I would guess put Cresselia at like 10%-ish. Not if it gets a crit though. That just gets a knockout. So Regidrago picks up 3 knockouts in 2 turns, and the Choice Scarf, I think, on this set in particular is what makes it so unique, because most Regidragos have existed on Tornadus Urshifu teams, and, or I shouldn't say Tornadus Urshifu, just Tornadus teams, and on those comps, basically Tornadus sets up Tailwind, and then Regidrago has, like, Dragon Play, and then you can go for a defensive Terra, like Poison or Steel, and of course you can Protect as well. But this team is all about just heavy-hitting offense, and in closed team sheet, best of 1, yeah, like, my opponent did not expect the Choice Scarf on Regidrago, right? And I can't blame them for that, because it's not a very common item, but as a result, we're able to catch them off guard, and Regidrago just completely dominates this game. Alright, this looks like a pretty solid game for Regidrago if we can eliminate Flutter Mane, but somewhat similar teams, honestly. They have Indeedee Armarouge as well. Armarouge, Water Ogre Palm, Blood Moon, or Saluna. Flutter. I think Indeedee Drago is interesting, but it's super weak against Flutter Mane. I mean, why not just Torkoal Lilligant again here? What is this weak against? It's weak against their Indeedee plus Armarouge. Man, the Indeedee Arma mirror is very interesting. Maybe I do want to go with Indeedee and Drago then, honestly. It's just if they lead Flutter, what do I do? Set up Trick Room, I guess? Give up Drago to get a free switch into Ursaluna? That's an option. Alright, I'm going to take a slightly weird approach in this game. Not sure if it'll work out. Basically, I think from their end, Indeedee and Armarouge is really threatening, and Lilligant Torkoal is quite good into Flutter Mane and into most of their setups, but not Indeedee Armarouge. Okay, they go with Ursaluna and Armarouge though, which I don't mind. I think I can actually... This is actually very interesting. I can go for Helping Hand, Terra, Dragon Energy. I think the main debate here is whether or not we think Ursaluna will protect, because if so, I could have gone Helping Hand Draco Meteor. But, yeah, we'll see. If their Blood Moon does not protect or defensively Terra, I'm curious how much this does. Like, Helping Hand plus the Dragon Terra. I would think maybe has the potential to get a one-hit knockout onto both, but wouldn't be surprised if it were a damage roll. I'm also worried about Fairy Terra here, and given that they are going for a Terra, that does not instill too much confidence in me. We'll see. Nope, it's normal Terra. Okay. Let's see. Regidrago, what do you got? That's a really good start already, I think. Because there, honestly, I think it's a decent chance this gets a double KO. Huh. And it's actually a Rangaroo protecting, so if I launched Draco Meteor into that slot, that would have been a disaster. But let's see. We've got a lot of boosts here between the Helping Hand as well as the Dragon Terra. Is it enough to knock out Blood Moon Ursaluna? The answer is yes. Amazing. Oh, Regidrago can just be so darn good. See, I think in that position, my opponent was obviously expecting to survive and then get a big attack off, like a Blood Moon with their Ursaluna. But that just opens the game wide open for us. So, Regidrago is putting in work right now. Armarouge comes out. So I think my main question is, does your Armarouge have Wide Guard? Because if so, then you can at least stall out a turn. But if you're Wide Guarding, it means you're not attacking, right? So what I'm down to do here is switch into Ursaluna and Dragon Energy. Basically, the reason I want to switch into Ursaluna here is I think they might want to Trick Room. Like, you could go for something like Wide Guard plus Trick Room, right? But if you Trick Room, why just bring out Ursaluna? And my Ursaluna just sweeps you under Trick Room. And if you don't Trick Room, I get a very powerful Dragon Energy off against both of your Pokemon. I could have just gone Helping Hand Dragon Energy, but I do want to respect the Trick Room option here. They're not going to go for they're not going to go for a Wide Guard, though, so we don't even need Helping Hand. That just gets a one-hit knockout onto Armarouge. This Pokemon is nuts. Oh my goodness. Let's see if a Rangaroo Trick Rooms. And you see that a Rangaroo actually hung on with a good amount of health. Yeah, they go for Instruct. Oh my goodness. This is just Regidrago putting on a clinic right now. Now we've got the Flame Orb activated as well. My opponent doesn't even have their Terra, and Indeedee is going to be their last one. So yeah, there's really nothing they can do. This is just Regidrago putting in so much work. I could have just stayed in, but yeah, I wanted to respect the option of Wide Guard plus Trick Room and punish that if they went for it. So I'm happy to just click Facade here and Dragon Energy. Man, Regidrago is going to end up almost knocking out every single Pokemon on my opponent's team, which is wild to think about. Indeedee has Heal Pulse, which is kind of a cool move, but neither of these Pokemon really deal damage, so you've got Flop Plano, Rangaroo, or sorry, onto Ursaluna, but we'll just get the knockout in return onto Indeedee. And Drago will pick up another knockout with Dragon Energy this next turn. What made this game easier is also the lack of Flutter Mane from my opponent's end. If Flutter had come out, it would be a little bit more awkward because I wouldn't be able to just spam Dragon Energy, but this is what happens when you don't have a Dragon Resistor immunity. Regidrago just does so much damage. Nice. That gets another knockout. Yeah, I think like turn one of the game, it would have been really difficult for my opponent to come back from. Their best play would have been protecting a Rangaroo and just Trick Rooming, because it looks like even with Helping Hand and Dragon Terra, a Rangaroo would have been able to potentially survive. So then if I go for that Helping Hand play like I did, and you go for Protect Trick Room, at least you successfully set up Trick Room. My solution against it would be to then switch out Regidrago probably, and then reverse Trick Room with Indeedee, go out into Armarouge, and then if you knock out Armarouge, I get the free switch him back into Drago. And if you don't knock out the Armarouge, I can just Helping Hand Expanding Force. So even if Trick Room had been set up on turn one, I think it still would have been okay. I had a game plan for it, but the fact that we just got a knockout onto their Terra option before it got to move essentially gave us the game immediately, especially with the lack of Flutter Mane in the back. Okay, we've got Wheezing here, which should make this really interesting because our abilities are actually very relevant. Roaring Moon, Golden Go, Rillaboom, Water, Ogerpon, Hisuan, Arcanine, and Wheezing. Ooh. Man, Wheezing makes this really scary. If I were my opponent, I would consider just leading Wheezing. I wouldn't be surprised if they have Taunt with it as well. But even if Wheezing shuts down our abilities, it's not necessarily the end of the world, right? Because I could go something like Indeedee Armarouge still. I think the downside is they could go something like Rillaboom. I'm honestly thinking about Indeedee plus Drago here. The downside is Drago, with its ability shut down, is not going to do as much damage. Man, Weezing honestly throws everything for a loop here. It's super interesting. Okay, I'm going to go Indeedee Drago. Torkoal. Ursaluna. I don't love Armarouge, but you can make an argument for it for single target Psychic Expanding Force onto Weezing. I think if I were playing a best of 3 and my opponent were to lead Weezing and I lost to it, that's immediately the adjustment I would think about. Just using Armarouge to snipe off Weezing. But yeah, the downside is that Roaring Moon gives that a lot of trouble. So I'm actually pretty happy with how this lead ended up. Let's see, is it speed booster or attack booster on Roaring Moon? Speed. So, I mean, I guess that's interesting because with speed, you might have breaking swipe, which would be annoying for Drago. But I could also get taunted with Indeedee right now. So, to be honest, this is not a good position. I don't really know what Roaring Moon wants to go for here is the problem. This is a really tricky spot, because if I were my opponent, I just don't know the Roaring Moon moveset is my main concern. I'm going to go Helping Hand, Dragon, Terra, Dragon Energy. Weezing actually pivots out, which I think is smart by them. But this is interesting. If Roaring Moon actually neglected the Regidrago, I could potentially make a big play off this. For example, if they went knockoff onto Indeedee, this would be a huge turn for us. But if they went like acrobatics onto us, I think that would be very bad. And they're going for a Terra. So, to be honest, I didn't have a safe play on turn 1. I think Weezing applying taunt pressure onto Indeedee was what caused me a lot of trouble here. And my opponent does a very nice job of not going for taunt and shuffling to get even better positioning by bringing out the Rillaboom. So, it's a little bit frustrating for me because I could have simply just maybe clicked Trick Room there on turn 1. Because I think if I get Trick Room and then bring in Torkoal, we're in really good shape. But I'm probably eating up an Acrobatics here. That being said, if it goes into the Indeedee slot, or if they go for knockoff, this actually still isn't the end of the world. Oh, wow. They're about to get Regidrago'd. So they Flying Terra basically to not take super effective damage, but Helping Hand Dragon Energy just gets the double knockout. That I took a big risk on turn 1, but I figured I needed to take a risk given how bad the matchup looked. And I think that actually might just single-handedly win us the game in one turn. Let's see. Because now my opponent doesn't have their Terra. This combo is ridiculous, right? Like, Dragon Energy already does good damage. You add Regidrago's ability. You add Helping Hand support. And pretty sure I can just go for Follow Me now and Dragon Energy. Let's think this through. I don't want to throw this game. How could we possibly lose this? Do I even need to Follow Me? Like, what are you even threatening Regidrago with damage-wise? Yeah. Like, I think Trick Room is interesting. I think Helping Hand is also interesting. I think Arcanine's going to basically be stuck clicking Rock Slide at this point. I would guess maybe Taunt comes out. I'm down to just Trick Room here, because if we actually somehow get Trick Room up, then like what we have in the back just wins, right? So they're going to Rock Slide. That looks like Choice Band damage to me, but that's fine. Knowing that you're banded means that the Ursaluna in the back basically wins this game already. Yep, and they just Taunt. Cool, that's kind of what we expected last turn, but that's fine. Yeah, denies Trick Room, but that's okay. The most important thing is now knowing that your Arcanine is Choice Banded. Because what that means is you only have 2 turns of Tailwind left. So here I'm going to swap Indeedee out into Ursaluna. And I'm actually down to switch Regidrago out as well. The reasoning for this is because Regidrago, once the Tailwind expires, just gets the knockout onto both of my opponent's Pokemon. So I don't really need to necessarily set up Trick Room. I just click Trick Room last turn because if I get it up, then Torkoal and Ursaluna win the game immediately. But Ursaluna at this point should just also win. Okay. They're going to go for Banded Rock Slide again. Yep. Good damage onto us. One thing to consider is that, of course, they do shut down our Guts. And so it's a little bit awkward. But at the end of the day, you just don't really deal damage to Ursaluna. There's only one more turn of Tailwind left. So I'll bring in Indeedee this turn, sacrifice it, get the free switch it into Regidrago. And Regidrago should be able to close out the game for us. Yeah, the thing with the speed booster energy sets, I was mainly just worried about them either launching Acrobatics immediately into the Regidrago slot or having Breaking Swipe, which I feel like has picked up a little bit in usage. Now I'm happy to just Headlong Rush and follow me. Even if Arcanine gets a flinch onto us here, it's fine. I would then protect Ursaluna, sacrifice Indeedee, bring out Drago, and then just Earth Power plus Headlong Rush. So, yeah, even if you get your infinite flinches here, I don't think there's actually a way to win because of the Scarf Drago in the back with Earth Power. So, Weezing is really good for my opponent in this matchup, though, honestly. It is probably one of the best matchups Weezing can come out in because all of her abilities are relevant, right? It denied me Psychic Terrain. It denied Dragon's Maul. And I think they didn't need to switch out on turn 1. The switch really punished them because it turned on Regidrago's ability. But I think they were probably just thinking, I'm going to play safely. And because this was such a bad matchup, I was like, I think I need to take a big risk. So I'm just going to Headlong Rush now and just Earth Power into Arcanine. Beautiful. With the Choice Scarf, we just get the knockout. This is where Scarf Drago is also a big deal, right? Like, I think a lot of people don't expect Scarf Drago, so they're thinking, okay, well, Arcanine's just going to outpace you, and I can maybe continue to get these flinches with Rock Slide. But with Choice Scarf, knowing that they're locked into Rock Slide, knew that this would basically be guaranteed. Okay. Good damage from Headlong Rush. I could have clicked Facade there. Didn't really make a difference, I figured, at the end of the day. But everyone heals back a little bit, and now Drago just Earth Powers. And I actually don't know if Earth Power gets the knockout here. I don't know if Weezing's more specially defensive or physically defensive. I personally guess physical. Yeah. Okay, let's see if this gets the knockout. Weezing does actually hang on impressively. So Sludge Bomb gets the knockout onto Drago, but we'll just get the knockout onto Weezing. Cool. I think this was a game that requires me taking pretty big risks. I don't have a safe lead against Weezing plus the Rory Moon. And I think Rory Moon, if it Terra'd and then Weezing just stayed in on turn 1, like, I'm surprised they actually opted for Tailwind since our team was already a more Trick Room oriented team. I think if you just go for Acrobatics there, this game looks really differently. Even just staying in with Weezing and Rory Moon and going for, like, Acrobatics onto Indeedee. I guess Acro doesn't do that much into Indeedee, though. I was mainly surprised to see the Weezing switch out. I thought, like, they would stay in and either protect or go for Taunt. And the fact that they switched out and Terra and allowed us to get a double knockout just basically blew the game wide open. But yeah, I think Weezing is otherwise a really difficult Pokemon to deal with. All right, we've got Weather here with Ninetales and Tyranitar. Interesting. Tyranitar is really good for them here against Psychic stuff. If it's Booster Bundle, that's going to be pretty problematic too. Oh, this is a really interesting matchup. Okay, this seems a little bit unorthodox, but I'm thinking Lilligant, Armarouge, Indeedee, Torkoal. I don't love Drago here because of the bundle and the Ninetales. Tyranitar is also just decently tanky. So basically, like, what I'm thinking here is I am able to either switch Torkoal or Indeedee in on turn 1, depending on what their lead is. Oh, this is so fascinating. And I say it's fascinating because my obvious play right now is to switch Lilligant into Indeedee and just expanding force. They could switch in Tyranitar. I could also switch in Torkoal here instead. I prefer the expanding force play. Do I want a Terra? It's pretty strong. Okay, I'm down. So, the thing I was worried about is Tyranitar switching in here, but if Tyranitar's switching in, it means that you get rid of your own Snow, which means you can't Aurora Veil. So I'm willing to just play super aggro on turn 1. Alright, they stay in with both, so that makes me think something's clicking Terra here to survive. But what makes this team so strong is the explosiveness on turn 1, right? There's our Terra. Yep, hands Terras. Fine by me, though. The downside is it means Aurora Veil probably is going up, to which I could have switched in Torkoal to counteract it. But I think we have so much pure damage here that Aurora Veil going up is fine, because I'm still 2-hit KOing most things. Good decision to not Fake Out there, by the way, by my opponent. Fake Out would have been very bad for them, because I set up terrain. Look how much damage that does still. Oh my goodness. Huh. It's a Swords Dance set, but that is basically the worst time to have Swords Dance, because I'm just going to knock you out with another Expanding Force. Nice. I would expect Blizzard here, maybe a switch in to... How do they get out of this? Switch into Tyranitar and Protect? I don't necessarily want to set up Trick Room. Could go for Helping Hand. I prefer the switch into Lilligant here. And then Expanding Force. What Lilligant covers for is Ninetales switching out into Tyranitar. That looks like T-Tar. Bingo. I guess the downside is my Sash gets broken, but that's fine. Yeah, like with this, I just get to close combat your Tyranitar next turn. Unless we think this is Choice Scarf Tyranitar. That's my only fear right now. But I really don't want them getting a Drain Punch off with Iron Hands. Would it make sense to run Scarftar? I'm just worried it's Scarftar and then you actually crunch Armarouge and then Drain Punch Lilligant. With screens up, I actually don't think a close combat knocks out this. What I could do is switch Armarouge out into Torkoal and then close combat Tyranitar. Scarftar's just so rare. Alright, this is one of the cases where if you have it, you have it. But it's just not a meta set. Nice. Okay. Perfect. Yeah, like Choice Scarf Tyranitar has been used throughout the years in VGC, but in this format, it's just not very common because it's still slower than things. And in a format where you have things, something like Urshifu, for example. Sorry, bud. That's exactly how I switched Indeedee out into Lilligant, though, right? To cover for this. So, yeah. You can see even with Aurora Veil, like the Psychic Terra plus Life Orb combination with Expanding Force is just so remarkably powerful. This team can win games just so quickly. Okay, feeling a little bit like 2013 right now with Cresselia, Moongus, Landers, Heatran. We've got Torkoal and Blood Moon Ursaluna. This could be a Drago game, honestly. I guess like max speed Scarf Land OT can be kind of annoying. If I'm my opponent, I'm leading Landorus Cresselia and then you turning Landorus into Heatran or Blood Moon on turn 1. I need my Blood Moon. It could just be Lilligant Torkoal here. Sorry, I said I need my Blood Moon. I need my Ursaluna. Bring Drago seems like a death sentence here. I'm still gonna bring Drago though. How am I thinking about this game? Basically, Lilligant applies Sleep Powder Pressure immediately. I think if you go Landorus Cresselia, I'm thinking about just Earth Powering the Landorus slot on turn 1. Oh, Landorus Torkoal, interesting. Okay. I mean, against this lead, I'm kind of down to just go Fire Terra after you Eruption turn 1. I guess the thing is this really could still switch into Heatran, right? I would personally switch into Heatran there. So, like, part of me is like, do I want to make the read? But if they don't switch into Heatran, I punish them super heavily. And they stay in, which is a really good sign. Okay, as long as you're not a defensive Terra here with Landorus. Oh, perfect. Okay, great. I was really close to clicking like Sleep Powder or Close Combat or Earth Power onto the Landorus slot, but basically the way I assess this turn 1 is even if you switch into Heatran, you then are not getting a knockout with Torkoal, and my, after you Fire Terra Eruption, should still do over 50% to your Torkoal, so that's a trade I'm willing to take. This works out even better because I should just eliminate Landorus outright. And this also means you can't Terra the Heatran anymore, which means I can just Helping Hand, after you Earth Power it for a knockout. We almost one-shot their Torkoal with that play. Wow. I mean, one-hit knockout there would have just ended the game immediately for sure, but even then, we're still in good shape. Click Eruption. Oh. Lilligant only loses about half its health. Yeah, I think it's really risky to go for an Eruption like that in the face of this kind of danger. They bring out Heatran. Got Regidrago in the back. I'm down to just Close Combat Torkoal here. Earth Power Heatran. I could have gone after you, Earth Power. That actually would have won the game here. I thought the Protect would play the other way around. But if they're just Heat Waving here, then Heatran faints. It could be Shuka Heatran though, I guess. Okay. Good Earth Power. And our Torkoal's clutch and lives on 1 HP. Even if we didn't survive though, it's fine because I just get a free switch into a Drago, right? Policy? Okay, I was like, no way, right? It's just leftovers. Yeah, knowing that I have Drago in the back, I actually don't mind clicking Close Combat onto Heatran. I mean, do I want both Pokemon to just faint here? I should probably just get the guaranteed knockout onto Torkoal here. Okay, it's still possible to lose this game, so I want to make sure I don't play this incorrectly. I think Close Combat into Heatran and just Protect here is fine. Yep, Heatran protects, which is fine. In doing this, you knock out Lilligant, I get the free switch into Regidrago, I Dragon Energy, switch Torkoal out into Ursaluna, and then I think we should be in good shape from there. And basically in doing this, I actually don't give my opponent a free switch in, which is beneficial. Cool. Good protect by them though, honestly. Nicely done. Also, the fact that Heatran had enough bulk to live that Earth Power. If anything, I would have preferred Torkoal to Feint, so I just get a free switch into my Drago a little bit earlier. Okay. Great. Now we bring Regidrago out. Knowing that the Heatran is protected, I don't think you're surviving Dragon Energy, so happy to just click Dragon Energy here. I talked about switching out into Ursaluna. It might actually be better just stay in here with Torkoal. And the reason for that is because I don't want them, like, in case they actually survive this Dragon Energy. Okay, they don't. But I was going to say, in case they do, I don't want my Ursaluna to potentially take a big Heat Wave. I'd rather let Torkoal Feint so then I get a free switch into Ursaluna. Because then another Dragon Energy should finish off Heatran. But yeah, I think turn 1 in this game was huge. You can very quickly win on turn 1 with this team if your opponent does not make the right play because of the firepower, right? Like, after you Eruption, Helping Hand, Expanding Force, Helping Hand, Dragon Energy are all combos that allow, like, often lead to a one-turn victory with this team. And Amoonguss is their last one, perfect. So just Dragon Energy Heat Wave here. Yeah, they're not going to be able to do much with that. I think the Fire Terra Eruption play on turn 1 was really risky, and it didn't pay off for my opponent. There's not that much need to go for the Fire Terra there, since Lilligants are normally Focus Sashed anyway. And going for Eruption when you're not necessarily the fastest or have a way to boost your speed with Torkoal, I think is really risky. So this game would look pretty differently if they had just protected Torkoal on turn 1, switched in Heatran. If that had happened, I had already committed my Terra, Heatran would have been able to get a Flash Fire boost, and then Heatran could have gone for a Terra afterwards. So I don't know if my play was necessarily the best, because it didn't actually cover for what that play that I just mentioned, which is specifically protect, switch, and Heatran. Which is why I was thinking about like going for a read in close combat or Earth Power onto the Landorus slot, but in the end, that ended up paying off. Heatran is a little bit scary to go up against, but I think if Heatran had come out, my approach would have been, I guess then the question is what Terra is your Heatran? Because if it's like Dragon Terra, for example, Drago can actually just crush it. But if it's Fairy Terra, that becomes awkward. So not 100% sure, but either way, this game was basically won off an incredibly strong turn 1, and then the lack of ability to Terra with Heatran afterwards, thanks to them committing their Terra on Torkoal. Alright, we've got Dragonite, Rillaboom, Urshifu, Chien-Pao, Heatran, and Farigiraf. This is a team of 6 that I meant to actually feature a while ago on the channel. It's a little bit outdated now, but it's created by Rinya, who is the creator of Rinya's Sun. If you played Sword and Shield VGC at all, you'll recognize that team. That was basically the most famous team that season. And so it doesn't utilize any Reg-E Pokemon, but it's just really darn good. The sets sometimes vary, but you've got like normally Citrus Nasty Plot on Farigiraf, Assault Vest Heatran, Miracle Seed Rillaboom, Scarf Urshifu, Sash Chien-Pao. Drago is really compelling here with Indeedee and Scarf. I think it's pretty darn good, yeah. The idea is to just follow me and start clicking Dragon Energy, and I can also pressure with Trick Room with this. It feels kind of silly to not bring Ursaluna here, but I want Lilligant Torkoal in the back. I think I'm kind of separating the modes with this team by doing this, though, so I don't know if it's the smartest decision. We'll see. Basically, the way I'm thinking about this right now is I put on a lot of offensive pressure with Indeedee plus Drago specifically on turn 1. They go with Dragonite Chien-Pao, okay. Yeah, that's fine. Like, we set up terrain. I think with this, I'm down to just follow me. Like, they don't have any fairy types. So follow me, Terra, and just Dragon Energy turn 1. I think it's okay here. Yeah. You could pivot in Rillaboom potentially here. I thought about Helping Hand to predict if, like, one Pokemon switches out here to get a potential one-hit knockout. One of the other questions is the item on Dragonite. It's normally banded, but you could run Assault Vest. That's what some players have been using on Dragonite recently. Dragonite pivots out, okay. Into Rillaboom? Nope, into Heatran. That makes sense. A Heatran pivot and then a Chien-Pao Protect on turn 1 makes a lot of sense, and is one of the best plays you can make against this team. So let's see if they went for that. If not, I'm hoping they just went for like an Ice Spinner or a Crunch, and then they just end up knocking themselves out through Rocky Helmet. Okay, no Protect from Chien-Pao. This will still do decent damage into Heatran, but they're normally Assault Vested on these sets, so I would expect Heatran to take it quite comfortably. Like, only deal 20%-ish or so. A little bit more, actually, 25. Now, the question is, what offensive attack is Chien-Pao going for? Ice Skull Crash. Okay, that's fine. This is interesting, because, like, I think if you're my opponent, you're probably incentivized to protect this, and then attack with Heatran. Heatran doesn't even do that much to Drago, though. The main question is if you're, like, Fairy Terra. But basically what I'm thinking about is I could actually use this as an opportunity to set up Trick Room for Torkoal. Just not sure that's actually that good for me. I also don't hate just going for Helping Hand Dragon Energy here. They don't Terra Heatran, so... Hey, I mean, this is meaningful damage to Heatran. Okay, Chien-Pao protects. Yeah, I mean, this is going to bring Heatran to around 30%-ish or so, right? Yep. Okay, it's just Earth Power, that's fine. It's meaningful damage into Drago, right? Like, I do get chunked substantially, so I'm definitely not knocking out Heatran now, but that's okay. I'm down for Follow Me here in Dragon Energy. Because a Helping Hand isn't going to get the knockout. Okay, they switch Heatran out. Maybe into Rillaboom? Yeah, I see. So the idea behind this, I think, is so that they can Sucker Punch me. And this is also part of the reason why I like going for Follow Me. Nice. Yeah, this is just Regidrago doing Regidrago things. Beautiful. That was a really good attempt by my opponent, though. I can certainly respect that. Look how much damage we do to Rillaboom, even after having eaten up an Earth Power. That is... Like, Scarf Dragon Drago is such a cool anti-meta tech right now. I love it. It's just genius. So the main thing to note is this does open up priority for my opponent now, right? So you can bring out the Dragonite, normal Terra, and start clicking Extreme Speed with it. So we're going to want to make some switches now, I think. If I were my opponent, I would probably normal Terra, E-Speed, and then U-Turn as well. U-Turn into the Indeedee slot, E-Speed into the Drago slot. With terrain control from Rillaboom and the ability to switch out, this is still not over by any means. Especially with this being Scarf locked. Okay, I cut it really close that turn. I basically was like... Oh, did the Drago's switch not lock in? That makes that awkward. That's okay, though. Yeah, the goal was to double switch here, so then I bring Drago back in and then just sweep with Dragon Energy in the end game. But this turn was actually really tough, which is why I timed out. Like, I wasn't sure who to switch in what order. Then I went back and thought about not switching in the Indeedee. Yeah, so they're going to Extreme Speed here into the Drago and get a knockout. So the goal was to switch that out into Torkoal, but it's okay. What's interesting now is you've committed your Terra. Oh, they went for Glide. That's huge that they went for Glide, actually. Because it meant that you don't get to position out with U-Turn. And what that means is I can bring out the Indeedee. which sets up terrain. So now if you're my opponent, how do you get out of this, right? You can't switch out both of your Pokemon. And that should be choice banned on the Dragonite. So Dragonite has to switch here. What I can do then is close combat the Dragonite, which knocks out Heatran as it comes out. And then switch Indeedee for Torkoal. I actually feel like I should have a guaranteed win here, but I don't know the item on Rillaboom. Because it could protect here, but Dragonite's banded, so close combat into this is basically a guaranteed KO right now. Yeah, so I think I want to close combat and then switch in Torkoal here. And they stay in with Dragonite. Okay. That works for me. Yeah, terrain is up. But I guess they didn't want to make the play of switching into Heatran, which I actually think is pretty smart. Because my hope was that they would just switch into Heatran there. But now my question is, does Rillaboom have a way to knock out Lilligant? I wouldn't expect it to, right? I would personally U-turn if I were my opponent in this spot. Oh, they just go for Woodhammer. Okay. Ooh, it does get the knockout onto Lilligant, though. Okay. That was a really good play by my opponent, like intentionally staying in. Oh, wow. That actually makes this really close then, no? Because you're going to Woodhammer Indeedee, but you might just feint from recoil? If I had stayed in with Indeedee last turn and clicked Trick Room, then I would have won the game. But they made a very good call to stay in with Dragonite there. I actually can't stress how important it was that they made that play. If I had close combated Rillaboom, then I would have won the game. But the reason I didn't was because I was worried about Rillaboom protecting and then Dragonite getting a free switch in into Heatran. So that was very nicely done. I'm going to follow me here and then Earth Power into Heatran. Yeah, that was so masterfully played. But the thing is, if you go for Woodhammer here, you feint from recoil, and then Earth Power just knocks out your Heatran. And they do go for Woodhammer. So I think we should win. Because they should just feint from recoil here. Talk about a crazy game here, though. Nice. Yep, that was the hope. And then now you Earth Power me, but we should survive this. With 19 HP, and I Earth Power in response. Yeah, obviously, anytime you time out in a game, I think that's the one turn you really have to reassess, and that turn, I just, wasn't 100% sure on what to do, because Extreme Speed Pressure was really scary. I think if Drago did end up making the swap out there, how would it have worked out? I would have then had Lilligant and Torkoal, and because they didn't U-turn, I would have been able to pivot Indeedee back in, and then close combat into the Dragonite slot. So, I think if I had made that double switch, like I'd intended to, Drago out for Torkoal, I would have been in great shape. Because they didn't end up U-turning. But what I was worried about was Extreme Speed plus U-turn. Trying to figure out a way how to beat that specifically. And didn't have the best solution in mind. But yeah, sometimes timeouts do happen. And one thing that's important in Pokemon is playing around it, right? So I cut things really close. And in the end, I actually did not get my moves in time there. It punished me a fair amount. Because I think, yeah, if I had just switched in Torkoal Lilligant, I would be in the same spot, but basically with Regidrago still alive. And Regidrago hanging around is a really big deal because it can just close out the game with Dragon Energy or Dragon Pulse or Earth Power, for example. So that was a really intense one. Okay, we've got Sinistcha here with Kommo-o, Milotic, Rillaboom, Chien-Pao, and Hisuan Arcanine. Size Spam is decent, but we have to eliminate Chien-Pao. Lilligant Torkoal looks solid here. It's actually an interesting... I guess with Lilligant Torkoal, they could go Kommo-o, Sinistcha. Wait, so why don't I just go with Drago? Scarf Drago kind of slaps here, no? I'm thinking Drago... Lilligant... Indeedee... Torkoal? Seems kind of weird. Maybe I just go Indeedee Drago. Indeedee, Drago, Armarouge. Torkoal under Trick Room feels like it can be pretty good, and it also covers for Steel Terra Como. Alright, let's try this out. I basically really like Drago here because they don't have any dragon resistances or immunities. I think the Choice Scarf can really catch my opponent off guard as well. So the logic is Drago applies offensive pressure in the early game, and I can maybe angle to set up a Trick Room and then get Torkoal out under Trick Room. But I think there are a lot of different approaches I could have taken here. I think Scarlet Lilligant was fine. I think Armarouge Drago is interesting, where I can swap in Indeedee. But it's Arcanine Champa, which I'm more than okay to see here. I think where this becomes interesting is if it's Fairy Terra on Hisuan Arcanine, and that's actually fairly common these days. It actually makes me think about just Trick Rooming with Indeedee here on turn 1. Because I'm worried about like Fairy, Terra, Rock Slide. I honestly don't mind Dragon Energy and Trick Room. It's kind of like a middle grounds play. But they didn't Terra. I totally could have just gone... Oh, you're not Focus Sash on Qianpao, though. Okay. That's huge. And it's Citrus Arcanine. Yeah. Choice Man Fairy Terra is one of the most common sets out there, which is why I wanted to respect that. But this ends up being amazing for us. As you can see, they don't respect the Scarf option on Drago, so it just catches our opponent off guard. Crit and a flinch, which is less than ideal, but all things considered, like this would look very differently if Qianpao were sashed, which is normally the standard, right? So the fact that they weren't sashed there is huge for us. Also sad, because if I just went Helping Hand, that would have been a double knockout, but I don't regret going for Trick Room, because if we bait out a Fairy Terra from their end, like the expectation is I get a good amount of damage off onto Qianpao, bring you down to Sash, bait the Terra out of Arcanine, Drago faints, then Torkoal comes out. Torkoal then can Terra, Fire, and then Helping Hand Eruption everything. That was the main plan I was expecting to take this game. Okay, Sinistcha comes out. Seeing that is interesting, because I honestly do want to just go for Dragon Energy. Sorry, Terra here, Dragon Energy, and Helping Hand. If you Trick Room, then it just enables what I have in the back. So, yeah, I'm down to just sweep with Drago here. Taking advantage of the lack of resistances or immunities. And then, like, if Trick Room gets set up, Torkoal just comes out and sweeps my opponent, especially, like, maybe they are still Fairy Terra Arcanine. I'm going for this play because they didn't Fairy Terra last turn. But maybe my opponent didn't Fairy Terra because they were expecting me to be slower, which would be, you know, the standard. Okay. So Drago gets the Terra. Okay, they don't Terra Arcanine, which is good. I don't know if this knocks out. We'll see. It'll be close. But I think if we get the KO, this game's just over. Oh, both hang on with, like, literally less than 3%. That's Sash Sinistcha. Okay, that's not very common. Go for Rock Slide here and then Trick Room. Nope, just Matcha Gotcha. Okay. Should I go get burnt here? Because if it doesn't get burnt, I think I can actually still just Helping Hand Dragon Energy for the KOs next turn. Oh, maybe it doesn't knock out Sinistcha. I don't know. Honestly, don't know. Let's find out. Actually, I should play this a little bit safer, no? Dragon Energy, and I don't even need to Trick Room. Trick Room does enable Torkoal in the end game. Okay. It's just that I have this Armarouge out, so the question is how fast is Armarouge relative to what they have? But we're min speed, so I think setting up Trick Room here is fine. Yeah, I'm just gonna Dragon Energy and Trick Room. Okay, Sinistcha switches. That's even better for us. Nice. Into Rillaboom. Perfect. Torkoal just wins this game now, even with the defensive Terra from... Oh, I guess you can Extreme Speed here now. But they target Drago, which is totally fine. Focus Sash Sinistra is really interesting, though. That is not something you see very frequently. And it actually saved them there, right? Without Sash, it's just a knockout. But now I just get Trick Room up. Which is perfect. Okay. And here I'm happy to bring out Armarouge. And I'm just going to protect here and switch into Torkoal. I think one thing to consider this turn is to not make this switch, because it does mean that they can double up on that Torkoal slot, but without being, like, it's not Choice Band Arcanine, so I'm not really concerned about the damage output from there. And by swapping in and out, I just get to click Expanding Force and end the game with that, potentially. But some nice plays to keep themselves in that this one. Like, if I just went Helping Hand, Dragon Terra, Dragon Energy turn 1, we would have just gotten a double knockout. But I really don't regret the play that I made, because I think it's very important to cover for Fairy Terra, and Focus Sash is normally on Chien-Pao, not on the Sinistra. But now that we've safely set up Trick Room, we've got the two strongest sweepers that we brought in this game. Actually, Drago is also really strong. To be honest, they're all really strong. That's what makes this team so darn good. Okay, nicely done. Yeah, they do Wood Hammer into that slot, but I don't really mind, because even if you knock out Torkoal, then I just Expanding Force spam everything. But good play. Okay, they do pretty good damage there. So you can Extreme Speed me now, but I think I'm just going to click Expanding Force and then switch back out into Indeedee, which covers for Extreme Speed. That knocks out the Arcanine. Rillaboom should never be able to get a one-hit knockout onto Armarouge, barring a critical hit. Like, I'm wondering if you're Choice Band and you Grass Terra here, whether or not that could knock out Armarouge, but unless you have Dark Terra specifically, Expanding Force should just get a 2-hit knockout onto everything. So, yeah, even with my opponent making the absolute best play this last turn, I had enough turns of Trick Room to work with that I felt confident, right? And what I didn't want happen is Fake Out onto Armarouge and then Rock Slide gets, like, a critical hit, for example. I guess Torkoal there could have been crit by either attack, but if it gets crit by either attack, then the Indeedee gets a free switch back in, and I just click Helping Hand, Expanding Force. The only way you could get around that is if you had Protect on one Pokemon, sacrifice something, switched out, and then, like, Rillaboom changed the terrain, for example. But Terra finally comes out. Onto Rillaboom. I would expect Fire Terra here. It's actually Dragon Terra. Okay. I mean, Dragon is really common right now. It's one of the biggest winners in Regulation E, but that's part of the reason why this team has Regidrago. Okay, they just go for Protect. Yeah, that's fine. Now that I've set up the terrain again, Arcanine does reveal Protect, which is a big piece of information. But with Armarouge still... Okay, they do have Knockoff here, but it's not enough to get the KO. Yep, perfect. No more Life Orb, but that's fine. I'm just going to click Expanding Force here. 2 turns of Trick Room left. Hold on. Okay, this is actually interesting, because I think they should switch into Sinistra right now. Like, Arcanine should go into Sinistra. So my question is whether or not Helping Hand, Expanding Force KOs. It should. Because we saw how much it did last turn just with Life Orb. We don't have Life Orb anymore, but now we'll have Helping Hand to counteract that. Honestly, my opponents played this really well, though, to keep themselves in this game. Like, it is getting a little scary now. Rillaboom is the one that pivots, though. Okay. Unless you go for a double and you get it with Hisuan Arcanine, then this game should be over, because it should be a double knockout. But I think going for the double is really smart here. I really like that option by them. They go for it and they get it. Ooh, that's huge. Great find. Nicely done. So we had a 2/3 chance to just win this game immediately, because if they don't get the double, then I just get the knockouts there. But with them having Dragon Terra and having Knockoff, they may have actually just clawed back into this game. Because now you can Fake Out onto the Armarouge. Wow, that was really well done. That was super cool. Yeah, you can fake it onto Armarouge and Rock Slide now. They may have just won this. That was such a good find by them. And that's where they had to play perfectly and get a little bit lucky to win this endgame, but this is why you don't give up, right? Because I had an amazing advantage in this game. That was very nicely done by them. Okay, so you would fake out Armarouge now, and then just Rock Slide. So I can protect here, heal back. Gleam just doesn't do that much damage. Yeah, I mean, I'm protecting and switching, but I actually think my opponent just wins the game now because they've stalled out Trick Room perfectly. Really good find with the double protect there. There's not much I can do about that, right? Oh, actually, there's one play I could make, which would have been clicking Trick Room with both Pokemon. Oh, that was an overly aggressive read. Whoa. Huh. Fake out Extreme Speed into Armarouge. Interesting. It might not matter, though. Because I think Rock Slide just KOs everything right now. But if I had just clicked Expanding Force... Well, I guess it probably doesn't knock out Arcanine. The knockoff was a big deal. Actually, I think that play was safer than I give it credit for. Yeah, I mean, now you just Rock Slide and knock off. I think I need a miss from Rock Slide, basically, from Arcanine. Or a throw. They could Extreme Speed here. Yeah, Expanding Force switch out. That was such a good find. Like, honestly, incredible comeback by my opponent. I figured I'd have the game 100% won by playing safe, but with them, like, using Protect, using their Terra just at the right time, it was actually enough to eke out the victory, potentially. They need to hit this Rock Slide, though, on Armarouge. And they do connect. Very nicely done. Kudos. The Focus Sash on Sinistra, and it barely surviving. Arcanine healing up with a grassy terrain. Like, this was a masterful comeback by them, so really well done. Yeah, the main thing is I had Rocky Helmet, so... But I guess Arcanine had chipped away everything where it could just start Rock Sliding everything. But I didn't do a good job of preventing a double Protect from happening in this game. Part of it was because Arcanine just never revealed Protect, so honestly, I got baited into thinking it just didn't have Protect, quite frankly. If we had just gone Dragon Terra turn 1, Helping Hand, or just... I don't even think we needed both, just one of the two. I think we would have just won on the spot. But like I said, I wanted to cover for Fairy Terra, which felt fair. And I had a pretty big lead in this game, but with them having Sash Sinistra and cycling Rillaboom perfectly and then making that really good read the turn that I had Armarouge and protected and then getting all that free damage on Torkoal, they found their way back into this game, right? I was willing to make that play because I was like, okay, the odds of you winning are still pretty slim, but in the end, it came down to a double protect and 2/3 of the time I get it, 1/3 of the time they get it. Those are pretty good odds of winning the battle if you reverse back to a couple turns ago. So yeah, I think that's honestly one of the best comebacks one of my opponents have had against me on Road to Rank in recent memory. And basically it all starts from finding opportunities, making really aggressive reads, right? And just getting free damage across the board. I guess the question is whether or not I should have switched out Indeedee into Torkoal that turn. Because I think you can make the argument of just staying in and then sacrificing Indeedee. Because if Indeedee just gets sacrificed, that ends up working out better for us. But yeah, really, really nicely done. I think the main thing when I was kind of calculating all this is I was like, I don't know if Arcanine even has Protect here, but given that it's a Citrus Berry set, it'd be rare for it to not have Protect. So that was a bad assumption on my end. Whoa. Okay, Ogerpon Cornerstone, Iron Hands, Salamence, Gastrodon, Volcarona, and a Fungus. What? That's so cool. I don't really see what their Indeedee Armarouge matchup is, though, quite honestly. I feel like Expanding Force goes really hard in this. So, I'm thinking just Indeedee Armarouge, Regidrago. Huh. Lilligant as a 4th is actually pretty interesting, because I don't think I'm actually going to set up Trick Room in this game. This also gives me a Spore immunity. It's naturally fast. Okay. I just can't remember the last time I fought against a Fungus, so that's really interesting. But the lack of psychic resistances or immunities makes Indeedee Armarouge look really good here, in my opinion. So what's the plan here? Probably just follow me Psychic Terror Expanding Force. I do wonder if they have like a good Terra defensively to stop this. Struggle Bug on Volcarona would actually make some sense here. Maybe I do set up Trick Room. But we have Regidrago in the back. I don't know what kind of Volcarona set it is, but Quiver Dance would make sense. Like, I'm leaning towards Helping Hand, Terra, and Expanding Force. This is a little bit risky because theoretically they could double up onto Armarouge, but I want to just get a one-hit knockout onto Volcarona and get Ogerpon down to 1 HP, because then that clears the path for Regidrago. But maybe Follow Me was just safer here. Oh, okay. That works out really well. They taunt, trying to stop a potential Trick Room, and yeah, it's Quiver Dance, but I'm willing to just lead into offense here, knowing how they don't really have any immunities or resistances to this. So we get Expanding Force. Oh my goodness. Psychic Terra plus Life Orb plus Helping Hand just adds so much damage that people don't generally expect from this combination. And that's a one-hit knockout onto Volcarona despite the Quiver Dance boost. Yeah, like, this is why it's pretty valuable to have, like, a Dark type or an Assault Vest type, like in Terra defensively, or something like Heatran, for example, because now I can just go for Follow Me and Expanding Force. The main thing when using this team is really, I think, like, figuring out what you want to do on the first turn, because it's so explosive. So we're going to see a Terra come out now. It's going to be on Ogerpon. Oh, interesting. Okay. But yeah, with Regidrago in the back, I think Expanding Force here probably gets the double KO. It's one of the first times I've seen Ogerpon, that Ogerpon form Terra, though, which is cool. Yep, just Ivy Cudgel here. I don't think you can even get a one-hit knockout onto the Armarouge if that got the knockout onto Indeedee. But I suppose if they got a KO onto Indeedee, then you have the chance of flinching Armarouge. But I think with Scarf Drago in the back, this game was basically over. Yeah. This is just such an explosive team. It's unbelievable. So Ogerpon faints. And this gives us now a free switch into Drago. Or Lilligant. The reality is that we had multiple attackers that were just so strong in this matchup, right? Like, both Drago plus the Armarouge can very quickly beat my opponent's team. And that's because they didn't have, like, great resistances or immunities to either. Like, if you look at their team, there's actually no Dragon Resistance / immunity or Psychic Resistance / immunity. So this was just an unbelievable duo to have in this matchup. And that's what this team can take advantage of, right? Like, I think a lot of teams just aren't well prepared for not only Indeedee Armarouge, but also Torkoal Lilligant and Regidrago. And so it's hard to have a good matchup against all 6 Pokemon on this team. Anyway, that's going to be it for this one. So thanks so much as always for joining me. Really fun to try out this team. I think if you're looking for a team to just quickly climb the ladder with, this is easily one of the best ones I'd recommend at the moment, just because of its flexibility and how many different modes that your opponents have to cover for. So thanks as always for watching. Leave a like if you enjoy, and I'll see you all soon. All right, peace.